In the future, the USA has been ravaged by a severe drought, and people are now willing to kill for water. Most of the people have left, but the Holm family stays because the father, Ernest, thinks plants will grow again if they could get some water. He remembers when the land was green, but his son, Jerome, doesn't. One day, two thieves try to break into a small building on Ernest's farm by burning down the lock. Ernest catches them red-handed and opens fire, causing one of the thieves to try to shoot back. He immediately gets killed, and the second thief asks for mercy, explaining someone told him there was water there. He also claims he needs to pee and reaches for his pants, but Ernest sees the gun and shoots him first. Jerome sees all this from afar and claims he could have helped, but Ernest just tells him to call him Dad instead of his first name. Then Ernest unlocks the small building, revealing a pump. Unfortunately, it doesn't give them any water, so they'll have to force their mule to keep going without drinking. The duo keeps going and meets the watermen, a group of people who hold a monopoly on distributing water, extracted from deep wells through a government deal. Ernest gives them supplies, and the men pay him with water. He also reminds Jerome not to anger these guys because they're dangerous. They must only do the trading and quickly leave. Ernest often tries to convince them to provide water for his farm, but the watermen charge too much. On their way home, their mule falls and gets severely wounded. Since the animal is in pain, Ernest shoots it to end its suffering. Jerome cries yet swears he could have done it. When they finally arrive at the farm, Jerome's sister Mary serves them mistress. Then she scrubs the dishes with soil while Ernest listens to the radio and Jerome sketches animal, which are their only hobby. Suddenly, Ernest hears a noise and rushes outside to discover Mary has sneaked out the window to meet with her secret boyfriend. The next day, Jerome and Ernest go to Sam's auction house and bid on a robot known as Simulate Shadow, or Sim, to replace their mule. Sam's son, Flem, bids as well and fights them to the very end, but Ernest wins the auction and his debt gets worse. Afterward, they go to the hospital to visit the kid's mom, Catherine, who can't walk because she was in an accident. The hospital has a special machine that connects her to a wire to help her walk, and the only way for the family to get Catherine home would be to buy that expensive machine. After a lovely afternoon with Catherine, the duo goes home. On the road, they see Robbie and Suze with their baby. Ernest calls them vultures for using their kid as a pity card to get handouts and drives away to ignore them. They get to the gas station, and after filling the tank, Ernest drinks a bit to round up the price. Then he takes some water back to Robbie and his family. The couple has been thinking about selling the baby because they can't afford to raise him, but Ernest advises them against it and promises to help them with the water. Later at the farm, Flem shows up, revealing he is Mary's secret boyfriend. He asks to borrow Sim and promises to pay a rent, but Ernest refuses unless Sam signs a guarantee. Flem gets offended and tells Ernest he'll never irrigate this land before leaving. The next time Jerome and Ernest meet the watermen, they make good time thanks to Sim, and Ernest starts talking the guys into considering an offer for putting a water line on his farm. Afterward, Ernest starts digging out his old pump so that the watermen can check what they have. While working, he tells Jerome he needs to get out there and meet a girl, or at least make some friends, but Jerome would rather take care of his family. On their way home, they see Flem drive by at great speed. At the farm, Mary tries to wash clothes by putting a cleaning agent in the vacuum cleaner. When Ernest finds out, he forbids her from going out, which leads Mary to argue that she's old enough to make her own decisions. Mary tells Ernest she hates him and loves Flem, then tries to run away. She bumps into Jerome and asks him for money, giving Ernest a chance to catch her. Mary cries and accuses Ernest of failing the family. Ernest locks her up and nails her window shut. Later, Ernest and Jerome wake up to find Sim missing. Ernest suspects Flem and goes to his house, but Sam tells him Flem left for the mountains that morning. It turns out Ernest's farm used to belong to Sam, and Flem is obsessed with reclaiming what his family lost, even though Sam believes the land is barren and water won't help. Afterward, Ernest goes to the mountains to investigate, but is knocked out. He wakes up at the watermen's camp, where they accuse him of stealing their supplies with Sim. Ernest denies it, but their leader, Caleb, attacks him. After a fierce struggle, Ernest grabs Caleb's knife and rifle, firing the rifle to scare everyone off. He escapes, while Caleb shouts threats. On his way home, Ernest finds Flem sleeping by the fire with Sim nearby. Flem had stolen the machine and supplies to frame Ernest. Ernest waits until morning to confront Flem with a rifle and then ties him to Sim, forcing him to walk under the hot sun with the supplies to find the watermen. Flem taunts Ernest about Mary, and Ernest pulls the rope to make him fall as punishment. Eventually, they're both too thirsty, and Flem convinces Ernest to stop for a drink. The supplies contain alcohol, not water, and Ernest starts drinking due to his addiction. Flem pretends to drink and claims Caleb wants Ernest dead, saying he stole the machine to survive. He even offers Ernest money, but Ernest refuses, finding the story suspicious. Drunk and dizzy, Ernest struggles to move. Flem seizes the opportunity, hits Ernest with a rock, and Ernest falls, hitting his head and bleeding. He falls unconscious, and as he does, he has a flashback of Catherine's accident, which was caused by his drinking. Later, Ernest wakes up tied to Sim, with Flem pouring more alcohol into his mouth and screaming wildly. Flem then heads to the farm, and Mary hops on his bike so they can escape together. Concerned for Ernest, Jerome sets out to find him. By nightfall, he discovers Sim at the waterman's camp, where the men tell him his dad died in an accident with the machine. During the funeral, Mary returns, and the siblings mourn together. They then visit their mom to deliver the bad news. Flem picks them up in his truck and takes them home. At the farm, Jerome angrily hits Sim with a hammer. Flem intervenes, explaining that grief is hard but shouldn't destroy their income. He offers to lead the family and reveals that Mary is pregnant. Flem shares his big plans for the farm, and Jerome agrees to let him try. In the afternoon, Flem takes supplies to the waterman and asks Caleb to install a water pipe on the farm. Initially, Caleb refuses, but Flem threatens to blame him for Ernest's death since Caleb's rifle and knife were found with the body. Fearing the consequences, Caleb agrees to provide water to the farm. A few days later, the new farm pump is installed, and Flem works hard planting wheat and setting up sprinklers. The family now enjoys actual shower. Weeks later, Jerome notices a small leaf on the ground, and soon the land is full of thriving plants. Flem and Mary celebrate by getting married and tattooing each other's initials on their hand. During the party, Flem drinks and dwells on Ernest's death. A couple of days later, Sam arrives at the farm with 2 bank representatives. They reveal Ernest's debt is enormous and demand Flem pay it. Flem tries to look tough by scaring the horses with his bike, but Sam explains that the bank wants to sell the land now that it's valuable with water and crops. Flem must pay or lose the farm. That night, Flem loads Sim onto his truck and picks up Robbie and his baby. He pretends they're just checking prices but ends up selling the baby against Robbie's will. Robbie panics and demands his baby back, leading to a violent confrontation where the buyers shoot Robbie. They fire at Flem too, but he shoots back while fleeing, leaving Sim behind. In the chaos, Sim is damaged and activates a mode that returns it to its original factory. The next day, Flem pays the bank with the baby money, but he tells the siblings that he sold Sim to Robbie. Meanwhile, Sim makes it to the city and is found by its builder, Calvin, who finds the owner's information and calls the farm. Jerome picks up the call and starts. The movie ends. Thanks for watching.